Hi everyone. So I need to make a follow-up video after the last video I just made because I got a lot of feedback and thankfully all of it very, very positive. And the topic was the abundance of converts we're going to see joining the Jewish people right before Mashiach comes, which is why right now we're seeing so many men, women, and children from around the world who are joining the Jewish people and have been for quite a while and will be for a little time more. So we spoke last time. I advise you to watch that video, but if you don't have the patience to, I'll just sum it up in 30 seconds or less. We said that one of the reasons that the Jewish people were put into galut, into exile, was so that we could go and travel throughout the world in order to enable the souls of these non-Jewish individuals to join the Jewish people. If we're just sitting in one country like the land of Israel, we wouldn't be able to attract those people because there's no social media going back for thousands of years. We'd have to be there in China, in France, in Russia, in Great Britain, or wherever we found ourselves, in Libya, Iran. So we needed to put ourselves, or God put us in those countries in order to bring those holy souls to join Yisrael, the Jewish people. That was pretty much the thesis of the last video. What I want to discuss today is something quite extraordinary, and that is, what is the root source of these individuals who do end up joining Yisrael, the Jewish people? I'm going to give two answers to this. One is biblical and historical, and the other is actually very, very recent, and both are very important to where we are right now, which is on the cusp of the messianic revelation, the process leading into it, and the process right after it. So it goes like this. We know that Abraham and Sarah, were very involved in outreach. They were bringing thousands and thousands of men, women, and children under the Kanfei HaShechina, under God's protective wing, to embrace ethical monotheism. So the question is, after Abraham and Sarah left Ur Kasdim and left Haran, those two countries they lived outside, those two areas outside of Israel, and entered into Israel, where did all these people go? Because they didn't become the Jewish people. So the answer the rabbis say is that it's true. These individuals probably went back as monotheists to their original homes and influenced their communities. But the Kabbalists give a fascinating answer. And they say that these individuals actually end up being reincarnated into future non-Jewish bodies. But these souls were really sparks that were part of Abraham and Sarah's original outreach efforts. And so what happened is this. By the time we got to Mount Sinai, only the Jewish people were offered the Torah at Mount Sinai. And there were other nations who previously were also offered but said no. However, there were individuals, listen carefully, inside those nations that actually did want to receive the Torah when God offered it to them as well. Well, why didn't they? They were outnumbered, and therefore they weren't able to. Where did they get the desire to become part of the Jewish people? Because those were original souls that Abraham and Sarah had connected to 1,000 years or so before that time. So God said, no problem. I'm going to allow those souls to reincarnate and come back into future generations, and every soul that converts and becomes part of the Jewish people is probably part of the original souls that Abraham and Sarah touched, but weren't able to come part of the Jewish people at that time because only Abraham and Sarah's descendants through Yitzchak and Yaakov were able to. And there were souls that were probably in other nations at the time of Mount Sinai experience, but couldn't become the Jewish people because they weren't able to become part of it. And so God allows those souls throughout history to actually come and be part of Am Yisrael no matter where we are around the world. That's the biblical answer. Let me share something a bit more recent, which I've heard from some very, very important rabbis and great Jewish scholars over the past number of years. And it goes like this. After the Holocaust, there was a big problem. You see, we had maybe 1 million children that were killed during the Holocaust and 6 million Jews in total that were killed. These souls, many of them, had not finished their mission, and therefore God allowed those souls to come back and be reincarnated in order to finish off their tikkun, their final fix-up before Mashiach comes. But there's a problem. Since so many Jewish people have been killed, there weren't enough Jewish families to allow these souls to enter back into this world. So what did God do? Well, he had no choice per se. And he enabled these Holocaust souls, victims, to come back into non-Jewish families throughout the world, because there weren't enough Jewish families to have them, right? There weren't that many left. And so what you'll find is today, and I have this on good authority, and I've heard many, many stories from many converts that I've been working with over the years, where they've told me they feel and they have memories and phobias and dreams of being victims of the Holocaust, and they feel as though they need to convert. Actually, really, probably most Jewish people today are to some degree sparks or part of those original souls who were victims from the Holocaust, but definitely converts. I would say that nearly all converts today actually were probably persecuted during the Holocaust and were victims to the Nazi regime, and they were enabled right before Mashiach comes to come back and become part of Am and Klal Yisrael. So there's two things happening over here. We have the biblical, the days of Abraham and Mount Sinai, and we have converts from the days of the Holocaust who were victims over there, who ended up in non-Jewish families, but were given and are given opportunities to rejoin their original faith, become part of the Jewish people, because after the Holocaust, they needed to get just in to finish the final tikkun right before Mashiach comes, which is where we are right now. And that is a modern explanation of why we're seeing so many converts join the Jewish people and why so many of them seem to find this connection to the Holocaust or to other recent atrocities, maybe some older ones. I have one of my students actually has a strong recollection of actually being part of the York Massacre, which goes back hundreds of years in Great Britain. Whatever it is, when a person becomes part of the Jewish people, they become a full-fledged member of Am and Klal Yisrael, and this is the time that we're going to see more and more of them. However, it's a small window of opportunity, because at some point, once Mashiach comes, that door will be closed. And so, for those who do want to convert, you don't have to, but those who do want to, this is the time.